6:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here is a news edited by Lal Malavarachi and read by J. Yogaraj. First headlines. India assures continued support to Sri Lanka. The Prime Minister expects to have a strong bilateral relationship with India. The COP decides to hold a special meeting to look into the power generation, procurement, distribution and projects of the Ceylon Electricity Board. Sri Lanka and Bangladesh look to strengthen economic cooperation between the two countries. The fuel cargo carrying 40,000 metric tons of petrol 92 will arrive in the island today. A new unique digital ID for all Sri Lankan citizens above 15 years. Committee to study possibility of granting 5 years leave to state employees to work in private sector. News overseas, EU awards Ukraine and Moldova candidate status. In sports, the fifth and final ODI game between Sri Lanka and Australia will be played today at R. Premadasa Stadium. And those are the headlines. The Secretary to the Ministry of External Affairs of India, Vinay Quatta, yesterday assured India's continued support as a close neighbour to overcome the present crisis. The visiting Foreign Secretary called on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the President's house yesterday. A special Indian delegation arrived in Sri Lanka to assess further financial assistance. The delegation informed the President that the Government of India and political authorities are committed to continuing support to Sri Lanka. President Rajapaksa meanwhile expressed his appreciation to the Indian government for continued support during this difficult period. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe yesterday said that the discussion with the Indian delegation led by Indian Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatta was fruitful. The Prime Minister said that he expects to have a strong bilateral relationship with India. The Committee on Public Enterprises has decided to meet separately to hold a special meeting in near future to look into the power generation, procurement, distribution and projects of the Ceylon Electricity Board. The decision was arrived at when COP met recently under the chairmanship of Professor Charita Herat to look into the Auditor General's report for the years 2017 and 2018 and current performance of the Ceylon Electricity Board. Earlier on June 10th, CEB officials were summoned to COP to discuss the matter, but due to time limitations on that said date, several issues were not taken up for discussion. Hence, they requested the COP chairman to inform the Parliament and the Speaker to appoint a select committee to look into all matters including the generation plan. The COP chairman pointed out that the committee could hold a special meeting to look into this matter. This news comes to you from Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Bangladesh High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Tariq Arif Islam has said that the time has come to further strengthen economic cooperation between the two nations. The High Commissioner said it will lead to progress in a number of areas including apparel, agriculture, health and investment when he called on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the President's house in Colombo yesterday. This year, 2022, marks the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two countries. During this period, both states were able to work very closely and amicably. President Rajapaksa also appreciated Bangladesh's support in the current economic crisis. Power and Energy Minister Kanchana Wijesekara yesterday said that the fuel cargo carrying 40,000 metric tons of petrol 92 has been delayed by a day. It will arrive in the island today. The minister said auto diesel will be distributed at full capacity countrywide and there will be limited distribution of super diesel. Meanwhile, the Litro Gas Company has announced when the next shipment of liquefied petroleum gas are due to arrive in the island. Litro chairman Mudita Piris said that two ships carrying 7,000 metric tons of gas in total are scheduled to arrive in Sri Lanka between July 5th to July 12th. The Registration of Persons Department has planned to introduce a new unique digital ID for all Sri Lankan citizens above 15 years. A department spokesman said the digital identity card is set to digitalize the process of submitting accurate details of all citizens and enable the presentation of information of the ID cards and the individuals in a simpler manner. In addition to the biometric information, the ID also includes fingerprints, the iris and a photo of the holder. And that's local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The Ministry of Public Administration says that a committee has been appointed to look into the possibility of granting 5 years of leave to the government employees to work in the private sector. Secretary to the Ministry, Mr. MMPK Mayadunne, stated that a 7-member committee has been appointed for this purpose, and the said committee is set to submit its report to the Cabinet of Ministers within 2 weeks. Incidentally, it has been decided at the cabinet meeting held on the June 13th to grant leave with no pay to be spent in or out of the country to public officers under special provisions, deviating from the provisions existing in the Establishments Code regarding the granting of leave with no pay until further notice. And that's top news.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
In Washlight, the National Water Supply and Drainage Board announced that a 10-hour water cut in several areas in Colombo tomorrow from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. on Sunday, the 26th, due to the essential maintenance work to the main water supply network. As such, a water supply to Athulkote, Pitakote, Baddegama, Miriana, Madiwala, Udamulla, Ambuldenia, Nugegoda, Pagoda, Vijayarama Junction up to 7th Mile Post Junction in High Level Road, and all connected by roads from Nugegoda Junction up to Open University in Navilla, and all connected by the roads will be interrupted. The NWSDB advises the consumers to fill their water tanks and express regret for the inconvenience caused. It also requests the people to use water sparingly. And that was Watchlight. And moving on to world news headlines, EU awards Ukraine and Moldova candidate status. Myanmar ex-leader sent to solitary confinement. Florida nabs the largest python ever found in state. And those are the headlines of the world news. Ukraine and Moldova have both been granted EU's candidate status, President of the European Council Charles Michel has announced. Today marks a crucial step on the path towards the EU, Mr. Michel said. Describing the European Council's decision as a historic moment, Ukraine applied days after the Russian invasion in February, and the process moved at a record speed. Its envoy to the EU described candidacy as a psychological boost. Myanmar's deposed pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been moved from house arrest to solitary confinement in a prison in the capital Nay-Pyiu Tau. The 77-year-old Nobel Prize winner was arrested when the military ousted her elected government in February 2021. For the past year, she has been held at an undisclosed location in the capital. Ms. Suu Kyi has already been sentenced to 11 years in jail and faces a host of other charges. She denies all the accusations against her. Her last meal was an entire white-tailed deer, and she was on a way to forest with a male snake when a largest python ever found in Florida met her demise. Weighing in at 215 lbs and nearly 18 foot long, and the female Burmese python was caught after researchers used a male scout to find her. She wrestled with biologists for 20 minutes before she was subdued, they said on Wednesday. Pythons have become pests in Florida as invasive snakes with no major predators out-competing native species. And that's world news. In development news, the Fisheries Ministry has decided to establish export-oriented sea leech production villages along the north and east shallow seas. Cabinet spokesman, Mass Media Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena said that Sri Lanka has been able to earn a significant amount of foreign exchange by exporting sea leeches harvested from the natural marine environment. And that was development news. And in sports.
Sports news is brought to you by
Sampath Bank. We present your future.
The fifth and final ODI game against Australia will be played today at R. Premdas International Cricket Stadium, commencing at 2:30 p.m. local time. The uncapped fast bowler Pramod Madushan is likely to play in today's game. The 28-year-old right-arm medium paceman Pramod Madushan performed well at the recently concluded domestic tournaments. He took 4 for 50 in his 8.3 over spell at the recently concluded Sri Lanka's A match against Australia A in the unofficial ODI game at the SSC grounds. Sri Lankan team led by Dasun Shanaka is more concerned about their batting, as their middle order could not succeed at the fourth ODI. The most successful two batters of the Sri Lankan team, opener Pathum Nishanka and Charita Salanka, both scored their maiden ODI centuries, while Dayan Jedi Silva and Kusal Mendis are in top form. And that was sports news.
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Sri Lanka's guidance rate at which interbank transactions are pegged was steady at 360 rupees and 90 cents against the US dollar, the central bank announced yesterday, despite there was a dollar liquidity shortage. Sri Lanka's commercial banks offered US dollars for telegraphic transfer at around 368 to 370 rupees a dollar for most small transactions. Currency dealers said the markets were witnessing a shortfall of a dollar liquidity amid injection of rupees. And that was business news.
Business News, sponsored by
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. Will you be the lucky winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee? 50 gold sovereigns for the top prize winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee. Scooters for the 10 second prize winners. iPhones for the 10 third prize winners. Mountain bikes for the 29 fourth prize winners. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Economic news, courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011.
A high-level Indian delegation led by Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra met Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe for discussions promoting bilateral investment in the fields of infrastructure, connectivity, renewable energy and deepening economic linkages, the High Commission said. Sri Lanka has sought more loans from its neighbour to manage the island nation's ongoing economic crisis, which has led to the shortage of essential foods and items like fuel, medicines and cooking gas amid lengthy power cut due to lack of US dollars. And that was economic news.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011.
Finally, in the weather report, the Met Department says showery conditions over the southwestern part of the island, especially western, Sabarakamu and central provinces and in Galle and Matara districts, is expected to slightly enhance during the next few days from tomorrow. Showers or thunderstorms will occur in times in western, Sabarakamu and central provinces and in Galle and Matara districts. A fairly heavy showers above 50 millimeters can be expected at some places in these areas. Several spells of showers will occur in northwestern province. Showers or thunderstorms will occur at few places in Uva province and in Ampara and Batticaloa districts during the afternoon or night. And that was weather report. And before we wind up this news broadcast, let's look at the main points once again. India assures continued support to Sri Lanka. The Prime Minister expects to have a strong bilateral relationship with India. The COP decides to hold a special meeting to look into the power generation, procurement, distribution and projects of the Ceylon Electricity Board. Sri Lanka and Bangladesh look to strengthen economic cooperation between the two countries. The fuel cargo carrying 40,000 metric tons of petrol 92 will arrive in the island today. The new unique digital ID for Sri Lankan citizens above 15 years. Committee to study possibility of granting 5 years leave to state employees to work in private sector. News overseas, EU awards Ukraine and Moldova candidate status. In sports, the fifth and final ODI match between Sri Lanka and Australia will be played today at the R. Premadasa Cricket Stadium. And with that, we conclude this morning news podcast of Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.